Trump said Iranians are begging to be bombed. Here's what's actually happening. Trump stood in front of the cameras yesterday and said this: the Iranian people are calling us. Please keep bombing. Come back. Come back. Those were his exact words. And here's what one of America's own former military analysts said immediately after hearing them. The people he's talking about, we killed them. They're dead. I think he's lost his mind. This is not a debate about politics. This is a war. And right now, almost nothing you're being told about it is true. If you follow this channel, you already know we don't do headlines for clicks. We do the full story. If you're new here, hit subscribe now, because what comes next in this video is the part the major networks are not covering. Let's start with what happened in the last 48 hours. Trump issued a deadline, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. After that, he said Iran would have, and these are his words, no bridges, no power plants, power. He used the phrase Stone Age twice in one press conference. Then he expanded it. He started talking about civilization, about wiping out Iran's ability to ever fight again. Now, here is what most channels skipped. Iran didn't go quiet. Iran fired back, not with missiles, but with words that carry the same weight. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, Ghalibaf, said publicly, "It is Trump who has 20 hours. Either surrender to Iran or your allies will return to the Stone Age. We will not back down." Iran's president said over 14 million Iranians have registered to sacrifice their lives in defense of their country. The IRGC released a formal statement that said, and read this carefully, "Self-restraint is over. If the U.S. Army crosses our red lines, our response will exceed the region's boundaries." That last line is the one that matters. Exceed the region's boundaries means the war does not stay in the Middle East. That is a direct signal to the American mainland. And while all of this was happening, Iranian civilians walked out onto the very bridges Trump threatened to destroy. Not in fear, in defiance. This kind of reporting takes real time and real research. If this content is giving you value, you can support the channel directly. The link is in the description. Every contribution keeps this going. Now let's talk about something the U.S. government does not want discussed openly. Iran thinks it's winning, and the evidence on the ground suggests they're right. Over 13,000 targets have been hit by U.S. and Israeli strikes since this war began. 13,000. And yet Iran's government is still standing. Its military chain of command is still intact. Its population is not broken. If anything, public defiance inside Iran has grown stronger with every strike. Professor Michael Clark, who appeared on Sky News, a channel that has historically been firmly in the pro-U.S. camp, said something that stopped people mid-scroll. The Iranians think they're winning, and they're probably right. Politically, they are. This is not coming from an Iranian state channel. This is not Russian media. This is Sky News. So why is Iran winning politically, even as its cities absorb strikes? Because this war was never just about missiles and targets. It was always about which side breaks first, emotionally, politically, and socially. And right now, Iran's population is holding. America's justification for the war is cracking. Here is the core problem the U.S. faces. You cannot bomb a country into surrender when that country genuinely believes it is fighting for its survival. Iran has made clear repeatedly through every channel available that for them this is existential. This is not a policy disagreement. This is about whether Iran as a civilization continues to exist. Trump himself accidentally confirmed this contrast early in the conflict. He called it his word, a journey. Iran is fighting for survival. America called it a journey. That gap in motivation is why air power alone has never ended a war of this kind. Not in Vietnam, not in Korea, not in Iraq. And analysts who have watched this for decades are saying the same thing is happening here. Here is the part of this story that changes everything else. Why did America go to war with Iran? The official answer: Iran's nuclear program, Iranian aggression, protecting regional stability. But listen to what experienced voices, including former senior U.S. military officers, are now saying openly. Everything the U.S. says it wants in the Persian Gulf: open shipping lanes, stable oil flow, no nuclear threat. All of that existed before this war started. The Strait of Hormuz was open. Iranian oil was flowing. The nuclear deal, whatever its problems, had inspectors on the ground. The war did not prevent a crisis. The war created the crisis. So then the question becomes, who benefits from this war? Who needed it to happen? Look at the stated goals coming from people like Senator Lindsey Graham, who said this on camera. Iran must never control the Strait of Hormuz. Iran must never have nuclear material. Iran must never again sponsor resistance groups in the region. Its regime must end. That is not a military objective. That is a complete destruction of a sovereign nation of 93 million people. And the only party in the region for whom all of those outcomes are a strategic necessity is Israel. Now look at the map that analysts are pointing to. What is called Greater Israel in certain political circles, a territorial vision that includes parts of Saudi Arabia, northern Iraq, Syria, Jordan, the Sinai, and significant portions of Lebanon. Whether that vision is realistic or not is a separate debate. What matters is this: the war being fought right now serves that strategic direction far more than it serves any American national interest. American families are paying more for fuel. American markets are under pressure. American infrastructure, I mean the power grid, the oil refineries, is now being discussed as a potential target for retaliation, not in some distant country here. And yet no one in Trump's inner circle, not Kushner, not Wiedoeft, not Lindsey Graham, not the Air Force generals who genuinely believe enough bombs can win any war. No one is telling the president what the real cost is. Let's be direct about what happens if this escalates further tonight. The Houthis have already signaled they will close the Bab al-Mandab Strait, a second major global shipping choke point if U.S. strikes intensify. Combined with the Strait of Hormuz's disruption that removes a massive portion of global oil supply from the market in one move. Europe is already in a difficult position. The Nord Stream pipeline was destroyed. Russian energy is cut off. Now Middle Eastern supply is under threat. The result is not just higher energy prices. It is industrial shutdown across parts of Europe that cannot function without steady energy input. Japan and South Korea, two of America's closest allies in Asia, are financially exposed to this in ways their governments have not fully communicated to their populations. And then there is the wider question that almost no one in mainstream media is asking. Russia and China have personnel on the ground in Iran right now, specifically helping with air defense systems. They are not neutral observers. They have made a calculation that an Iran defeated by U.S. and Israeli power is a world where their own strategic position is permanently weakened. If Iran is pushed to a breaking point, the responses that follow will not stay inside Iranian borders. Drug cartel networks in Mexico, some of which already have Hezbollah links, could become tools of retaliation against U.S. infrastructure, power grids, refineries, facilities that the U.S. government itself has admitted are not fully secured. This is not speculation. This is what happens historically when a cornered nation with allies and proxies decides it has nothing left to lose. So what is Trump actually thinking? The honest answer based on everything visible is this: he is in a trap of his own making. He set deadlines. He used maximum pressure language. He tied his credibility to outcomes. Open straits, no Iranian nukes, regime change that cannot be achieved through air power alone. There is no land army ready to go in. There is no political plan for what comes after. There is no exit strategy. Every time his threats don't produce results, the political logic inside his circle pushes him toward one option: escalate. Not because escalation will work, but because de-escalation in his political environment looks like losing. And losing is the one thing his entire brand cannot survive. So the bombs keep falling, the language gets harder, the deadlines get reset, and the gap between what is being promised and what is actually happening on the ground gets wider every single day. The people who will pay for that gap are not in Washington. They are not on Wall Street, which is by most accounts still not pricing in the full risk of what is happening. They are in the middle of the country paying for fuel, buying groceries, watching their purchasing power erode, and being told by their president that Iranians are calling to beg for more bombs. Here's where this stands tonight. Iran is not breaking. The strikes are continuing. The deadlines keep getting reset. And every time a new one passes without result, the language from Washington gets harder. Not because the strategy is working, but because no one inside that building has the courage to say it isn't. Russia and China are not watching from a distance anymore. They are on the ground. They are helping Iran rebuild its air defenses in real time. They have made a clear calculation, but if Iran falls, they are next. That is not an assumption. That is how great powers think. And both of them have nuclear weapons and the willingness to use the threat of them. Global markets have not yet priced in what a prolonged war in this region actually means. The Strait of Hormuz, the Bab al-Mandab, two of the most critical shipping choke points on the planet, both now under serious threat. Oil does not just power cars. It powers fertilizer production, medicine supply chains, shipping logistics, food transportation. When oil supply breaks down at this scale, the consequences show up 6 to 12 months later in grocery stores, in heating bills, in unemployment numbers, in the lives of ordinary people who never once voted for this war and never will. And the man making these decisions is being told by everyone around him that he is winning. He is not winning. The question is no longer whether this policy fails. It will fail. The only question left is how much damage gets done before someone in that building finally stands up and says it out loud. So I want to hear from you right now. Do you think Trump pulls back from this, or is full escalation now locked in? Drop your answer in the comments below. Read what others are saying. This is the conversation that matters. If this video gave you something the mainstream news didn't, share it with one person who needs to see it. That one share is how independent channels like this survive. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. We cover this conflict every single day. We don't do spin. We don't do talking points. We stay on this until the full picture is on the